We've got a quarterback. Bo Nix needs to be the quarterback from here on out.
I will be disappointed if he is not the quarterback with the first team for that Friday practice.
So the Broncos and the Colts just had their preseason debuts, and we finally got to see the long-awaited first game of Bo Nix in a Denver uniform. And on the other side of things, we would see Anthony Richardson, who I think is set to have a great season for the Colts. And I'm going to talk about him later in another video. But for the Broncos, we all know that it is basically Nix and Jarred Stidham competing for the starting quarterback job. And I know the coaching staff has said it's going to be Stidham, but honestly, until the last few days before the season starts, I don't think the real decision is actually going to be made. I just think the guys in the front office and coaching staff want to get rid of some of that unneeded media speculation whichever way they can. In this video, I'm going to be talking about everything going on with the Broncos, any recent news with training camp, and I'm going to be going over how some of the key players like Bo Nix did in the first game. But before I begin, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. Alright, so as I said, the competition is Stidham versus Nix. I know there's also Zach Wilson who did play in this game, but I don't really feel the need to include him in the mix of things in terms of like who's going to be the starting quarterback. When Nix came into the game, he was working with the first team offense. The first team offensive line was out there along with most of the playmakers. So we got to really see what things would be like with him under center, unlike some other teams where their QB played with maybe just like the offensive line and one playmaker or something like that. I think the overall headline for Nix in this game is that he absolutely shined, especially for it being his first time on the field in a game-like situation in the NFL. Here is what the media had to say about it.
Sean Payton was not going to name a starting quarterback after the first preseason game, right? And he should not. You got to go through this week and then the second preseason game next Sunday against the Packers. Then the starter will be obvious, and it will be Bo Nix. Barring any serious setback or injury, it was obvious today in Indianapolis that the Broncos' first-round pick is ready to go.
Alright, now let's take a look at some film from this game. So first off, this is the first completion for Nix on third down. There was 3 receivers out wide, nobody really got open at first. The offensive line honestly did a pretty solid job of blocking, but nothing was developing on the play, and when Nix realized that, he stepped up and took off towards the line of scrimmage and waited until he could find someone, in which he did in Courtland Sutton by the sideline. Next up right here, this was an incomplete pass, but it was a beautiful ball by Nix. He put it where only Reynolds could get it, would have been a touchdown if it didn't go right through his hands. These are just the type of throws that you love to see from young QBs. Here Bo showed off a little of his mobility, scrambling and turning a broken play into a first down. And this play also showcased good blocking from the O-line as well. And then sticking with the mobility, this was a little quarterback keep, and Nix exploded to the sticks. I know this is a play that many QBs could make, but again, from a guy that's never played an NFL game before, it was so cool to see him show off all the tools in just a few drives. In terms of the other guys on the field, Zach Wilson threw for 117 yards on 10 of 13 attempts, and Stidham was 4 for 7 with 37 yards. With this being such a high-scoring game, the running back room actually had 3 combined touchdowns. Audric Estime, Blake Watson, and Tyler Beatty all had one. And then Courtland Sutton led the way in the receiving game with 35 yards, and there was 8 players with over 15. Here's what some of the media and Bo Nix himself had to say about the game.
It doesn't matter if you're Bryce Harper, you could be Wemby, you could be a hockey star. You put it in the oven, you cross your fingers, you bake a couple years, and hopefully they help you out. But my takeaway is, as big a mess as Denver was, Nat Hackett, draft capital, cap hell, it was a mess. And I watched that and I went, are these the Texans?
It was a good day. I thought we ran the ball efficiently, made some good plays in the past game, converted some third downs, got points when we needed to. It was a good job, going into half with points and then coming out with points. Felt like that was a good point in the game. But overall, felt like we did a good job. A huge team win.
Now moving on to what players I think helped themselves out the most in this first preseason game. First up, we have Luke Wattenberg. Now, while Forsythe is still in the running for the starting center position, he did look solid against the Colts. Wattenberg really shined, he looked like he belonged with the starting offensive line, and with most of the first team reps at camp going his way, it seems like it's his job to lose. Ross Allen of Mile High Report believes Wattenberg did exactly what he needed to do to solidify his spot. Next up, let's talk about Lucas Kroll. Sure, he had that fumble that cut the third Knicks drive short, but that didn't define his game. He bounced back with a 4-catch performance, including 2 back-to-back catches catches for 31 yards right after the fumble. This showed his resilience and his strong connection with Nix. Taylor Koth thinks Krul could be a key depth player behind Dulcich, especially since Denver has been lacking playmaking tight ends in recent years. According to PFF, this is how some of the best performers of the game ranked. Wide receiver Brandon Johnson was the team's highest graded player on offense with an overall grade of 81.4. He was followed by offensive tackles Matt Pert with an 81 and Demontre Jacobs was 78.8. And then Marvin Mims was 73.3, had the second best grade among receivers. On the other side of the ball, Broncos inside linebacker Alex Singleton was the team's highest graded defender with an overall grade of 89.9. He was followed by pass rusher Jonathan Cooper with an 86 and cornerback Chris Abrams-Drain had an 80.7. All of the team's other defenders were graded lower than 80. Here are some of the highlights from PFF's recap of the game, which many people are actually criticizing.
So anyway, Broncos, I liked the Broncos draft. Of course, it starts with Bo Nix, and say what you want about Bo Nix. I mean, look, I would not, in a vacuum, want to take Bo Nix at 12.
Right.
This was you need a quarterback type of play, and we don't have a second rounder to get one.
So overall, Nix is expected to be the day one starter for this team, a decision supported by his performance, which included 0 sacks in the game, a stark contrast from Russell Wilson's struggles last year. The issue of quarterback sacks is often misunderstood. They are more a reflection of the quarterback's ability to release the ball quickly rather than the offensive line's performance. Last season, many of the sacks were attributed to Wilson's decisions, underscoring the importance of a quarterback who understands the offense and avoids unnecessary sacks. Looking ahead, the Broncos have a manageable schedule, opening with Seattle and facing teams like Vegas, the Jets, and Tampa Bay. There is a realistic chance for the Broncos to emerge from the first few weeks of the season with a winning record, or at least a solid 3-3. The team may not have big names outside of like Sutton, but there is undeniable talent that has yet to make a name for itself. By the end of the season, expect to see several Broncos players gaining recognition in terms of the Pro Bowl and all that stuff. Now switching over to what has been going on with the defense in training camp, there have been some notable points. First is increased pressure. The Broncos defense has been actively working on increasing their pressure on the offense. During day 11 of training camp, the defense implemented numerous blitzes, which helped them practice getting to the quarterback more effectively. Next, another big factor of this defense is of course injuries. The Broncos have really been dealing with injuries to key defensive players. Safety Brandon Jones and cornerback Levi Wallace have both been sidelined due to hamstring injuries, which has affected the defensive lineup. In their absence, players like Skinner and Devin Key have been getting more snaps with the first team defense. In their preseason opener against the Colts, the Broncos faced additional challenges with injuries. Cornerback Art Green was evaluated for a concussion, and tight end Lucas Kroll suffered a toe injury. Even though it isn't being considered severe. Overall, I know there is a lot going on with the Broncos right now and a lot that you can look into, but I just think we all need to take a step back and the Broncos just need to take things one step at a time. First off, figure out who the starting QB should be, which to me will be Bo Nix, and then they got to use the first few games to get everyone in the rhythm with each other, and then from there, we will see where this team really is at. That's all I have for this video. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point, and if you enjoyed and haven't yet, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe, because your support truly does mean the world. And also, let me know what you would like to see next, and how you are feeling about this team as we get closer and closer to week 1. Thank you all so much again for watching, and until next time, I will see you all later.